Howdy, people, and welcome to the 6th Chugcratic Extracurricular Seminar. Joining me today is the Dean of Fabrication, Definitely Not Char.
Pleasure to be here, Rune. We're looking at the most recent Pulse stream today, right?
Yes, this is the one they held on the 14th of May. Although I will say that we're actually starting with a couple of figures that were showcased either earlier than that or not at all. In the last extracurricular, Kit and I went over Robosen Megatron, and as someone who is pretty much into engineering of sorts, would you be interested in giving your thoughts on this one?
Sure. Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but my degree, well, it's in engineering, but the course I did was robotics. So this is the specific kind of engineering I'm intimately familiar with. And it's cool, but it's not exactly pushing any boundaries robotics wise. It moves the same way that it walks around the same way that the Robosen Optimus Prime does. It's not the kind of thing that excites me from a robotics perspective. I don't know, these Robosen figures, they just seem like a massive gimmick to me right now. You know, as a Transformers collector, one of the things I like about Transformers is how tactile they are. So a Transformer that transforms for you kind of defeats the purpose, if you know what I mean.
I get that. I mean, when it involves a bunch of wiring, there's only so many ways that a figure can transform.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is sort of amusing or entertaining with all the features it has. I mean, it's got like the voice chips, it's got the weapons that you'd associate with the character. When it fires either a missile or a bullet, whatever you want to call it, from its gun barrel, the barrel actually retracts in the process. It's got a target of Optimus Prime, so that you don't have to use the actual Robosen Prime for target practice. It can actually interact with Robosen Prime as well.
That's interesting.
I'm just basing that. What I'm trying to say is, I've seen Sixo's video.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in action. It looks pretty cool.
It looks cool, but it seems like one of those things that's how do I put it? It feels like it's something that's more geared to not casuals, because this isn't something a casual person would buy, but I don't know.
It's geared towards rich people.
Yeah, it's geared towards rich people with a passing interest in the Transformers. As a, you know, something like this, I would find more interesting if it was able to walk. Because I have seen this in action. I've seen a bit of it in action, and you know, it's basically a glorified Chuck E. Cheese animatronic at the end of the day.
I wonder if they'll make I wonder if they'll make a downsized version of this guy.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know how well the downsized Optimus Prime sold. I remember a lot of people were angry about that, because what they did was they sold the original Optimus Prime, and then they made a downscaled version that sold for the original price of the Optimus Prime, and then increased the price of the original one.
Is that what happened?
That's what I heard happened. I might be wrong, in which case I will eat my hat, but that's what I remember hearing about.
Well, either way, this is a fun toy that I'll never be able to own. In which case, we should probably move on to something that we may or may not be able to own down the line, and that is a figure that wasn't showcased in the live stream, and in general seems to have slipped under the radar a bit. It's the core class Studio Series Bumblebee movie Starscream.
Yeah, this is neat. It's certainly a rebuttal to anyone who said core class is dead. That's for sure. At least for the time being.
I didn't think it was. I didn't think it would be. Well, the rumors are that it will apparently be dead in 2025, so still got a few months left. But this one looks a bit rough, though, at least in alt
Yeah.
mode.
I mean, it's neat that they translated that design to this size class, but it didn't translate very well. I don't feel like.
Honestly, that's in a way that is, I guess, kind of the appeal of the downsized Legends, Legions, Cyberverse Commander class figures of the live action movie characters. It's just wondering how well these designs translate at such a small scale, and this one could be better.
Yeah, it kind of harkens back to the old days. I say the old days. Um, Back when back during when the first three movies came out and Cybertron, where you basically had every single character would come out in a legend scale class, and you had Cyberverse for a while, and this sort of thing was very common. This style of toy where it was a downscaled version of a design that would have a bigger toy as well.
I miss those days.
They were fun. I did like Cyberverse. I liked the playset feature. It kind of reminded me of Micromasters now that I think of it.
Yeah, we should point out to the audience that when we say Cyberverse, we're not referring to the main line. We're referring to an old play pattern that happened around the time of Dark of the Moon and Transformers Prime.
Yes, and it also coincided with myself, Kit, and I believe Arm's childhood when we were the peak target audience for the Transformers line. Sorry to make you feel old there, Rune.
I was sorry, what?
I said I'm sorry to make you feel old there, Rune.
I feel old anyway. But yeah, I mean, I do miss those days where they do a bunch of the movie characters at the basically at the budget size classes, I think we call it now.
Yeah, I remember one of the very first incarnations was in Japan. They had the Legends class Cybertron toys, and they were called EZ Collection.
Going back to Starscream, like the vehicle mode looks a bit jank, but the robot is okay.
The torso is quite long. It kind of looks like he's got like a long tube for a torso.
It definitely captures the look of the character, and it looks like it has some interesting transformation. Well, perhaps not interesting, but fun transformation elements where the tail fins tuck behind the legs, cleaning things up a bit.
It also appears that the upper body basically swings around the pelvic area, kind of reminiscent of Titan's Return Trigger Happy.
Yeah, I love that figure.
It is a great figure.
Yeah, the thing is, this toy was revealed by Takara in their stock images, and it hasn't shown up on any of Hasbro's poll streams. The only time, the only reason I'm even aware of these images specifically is because there was an Amazon listing for it for the States, that is. I just don't know when this figure is coming out or if it's been delayed. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And if it does, we can expect at least a few re-decos from it.
Maybe. That is if core class survives till the end of the year, or whenever they said it's ending.
Like right now, the only version I have of the Voyager is Thrust.
Yeah, I have Thrust as well. I remember I got that one specifically because I liked the Blitzwing style head.
I got that one because it subverts expectations in regards to who it homages.
Yeah. That's also interesting. That it goes to the Armada reference rather than the G1 reference.
Well, so go on.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we'll be touching on the Voyager class mold in a bit. But now we move on to toys that actually were in the live stream, and we're sticking with core class because we have Steeljaw. 86 Steeljaw.
All right. Do you want to go first, or
You have the floor with this one first.
All right. So as a value proposition, I absolutely see where people are coming from, saying that this is way too small, because this is effectively a MicroMaster figure packaged as a core class figure, because obviously all the other cassettes were either sold as pack-ins with the Voyager class figures, or they were sold in 2 packs as at the MicroMaster price point. I don't feel like the what's the word, the speaker. I don't feel like the speaker really justifies it being at a core class at a core price point. Um, you know, really what they should have done is they should have done like a 2 pack, like the old MicroMaster figures. I don't think that would have broke the bank really. You could have done this plus, I don't know, Ramhorn. Was it Ramhorn who is the Rhino cassette
Yes.
bot? Yeah, something akin to that. But this is where we are. It's not terrible for what it is. The way that they did the lion transformation is neat. With the with the sides of the sides of the cassette coming together to form the main, and the guns being built into the sides. The way I really just look at this toy as basically DLC. It's DLC for Blaster. If you have Blaster, this toy is probably worth more than if you don't have Blaster. If that makes any sense.
Well, naturally, I mean, he's a cassette. He's meant to go inside Blaster.
He's meant to go inside Blaster, and of course the accessory that he comes with is very obviously meant to go with Blaster, considering it's the speaker that comes out of his hand.
Yeah, for context, for anyone who's watching, the Blaster accessory is a reference to a Season 2 episode of the Generation 1 cartoon called Autobop, where in his battle with Soundwave, his finishing move is Blaster picks up 2 of those golden speakers and, of course, aims them at Soundwave. Of course, they've been struggling to get Blaster's cassettes out, and apparently Ramhorn and Ratbat are going to be included with essentially a package refresh of 86 Perceptor.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a moment in the movie where Ratbat is attacking Perceptor and Ramhorn basically charges at Ratbat. Going back to Steeljaw, the thing about him is that the speaker is why the figure is as barren as it is.
Paint wise, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess because it is painted solid gold, which does bring up the question. Considering that the figure already has gold parts, why not cast the entire thing in gold?
I have no idea.
Me neither. That is a very strange choice.
Are we sure that those wings and missiles are gold paint? Sorry, gold plastic, sorry.
They look gold plastic to me. Generally gold plastic does have a noticeably different finish to gold paint, and from what I'm seeing here, those wings and guns are almost certainly gold plastic.
Well, as long as it's not a certain type of gold plastic, I'm not entirely going to complain.
Well, we'll find out in 15 years, won't we?
Another thing about this toy is that given its transformation, it will essentially have fake cassette spools on one side.
Yeah, another interesting artifact of the transformation is in robot mode it has a butthole.
I really needed to know that. Thank you.
If you can see where the pin comes out on the other end.
Yeah, I'm not going to look when I get a hold of this. Okay.
Okay.
The one thing I have got to give credit for when it comes to this figure and Ravage is that they're essentially trying to recreate a cassette transformer that was well, let's just say that they're animal robot modes were essentially steamroller victims.
Yeah, yeah. Though I feel like Ravage the original Ravage toy pulls it off better than Steeljaw, considering, of course, Ravage is a panther, and he's much thinner and more slender, whereas Steeljaw is a lion, and he's meant to be, and lions are, of course, more well built, and they have the wide mane, which is kind of very obviously flattened on the original toy.
I mean, I guess in a way we should be impressive that they're able to physically exist in any way, shape, or form at all, given that you have a thinker set that transforms into a robot.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Maybe this is me being a bit cynical, but is it just me, or does it seem like Steeljaw has less? No, I don't know. Am I correct in remembering that Ravage has knee joints? The new Ravage, that is, Siege Ravage.
I think he does. Even, I mean, granted, it's a byproduct of the transformation, but he still has joints.
Yeah. I'm not sure how practical it would be to have joints in those legs because they look pretty thin, but that is just something I'm noticing.
So essentially, at the end of the day, this one is a a pickup. It's generally an inoffensive release, despite that it's too small for the price point, and it could be improved here or there, but it could be worse. It could
Yeah,
be worse. And it
like I
does,
said, this toy is basically DLC.
beg the question as to, well, since Blaster wielded two speakers, is this how they're going to get out an opaque rewind?
Maybe, or maybe even wait. Am I? Rewind is the blue one, right? Or was that
No,
eject?
that's eject, and he came with Studio Series Blaster,
Oh,
so
right, yeah. I see where you're going. Yes, actually, that might be why it's painted gold instead of gold plastic then. Because they might want to do it so that so that they can cast the two speakers out of yellow and black plastic and paint them so they're the same color, so it looks right, instead of having one be painted from black plastic and the other one being gold plastic. That would be
yes,
my theory.
that is a logical conclusion. Because like maybe I just don't know enough behind the scenes, but they reissued Energon Grimlock without Swoop for Age of Extinction. So would they make another use of the eject mold without redoing or redecorating Blaster in any way, shape, or form?
You see, I'm not sure because I don't own those toys, so I don't know how many. I wouldn't be able to really guess at how much of the tooling those figures share. You know, how many of the sprues they, to what degree were they gang molded? You know what I mean?
So I think we've talked enough about Steeljaw. Next
Mm-hmm.
up is another Gamer Edition figure, a Decepticon trooper who is a partial, as they call it, of Barricade, a mold that is not particularly popular. And I honestly don't know how to feel about this guy either.
On one hand, I like the idea of the genericons getting toys. You know, but this isn't it. This isn't it. The original figure, I don't own, but I've seen enough to know that I don't want it. And as you say, this basically shares the engineering of that figure, and it's just it doesn't look it yeah, it's basically just a retool of an already not particularly good toy, and it's not a particularly compelling design either. You know, like I like that it's a genericon, but the fact that it's a genericon means that it relies on the mold being good, but the mold isn't good. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite as harsh towards Barricade as a lot of other people are, but I can't deny that it is a very flawed mold. It just feels like Barricade's design would have worked better at the Voyager price point, but the articulation is very stunted in places where it really shouldn't be, like the wrists. I mean, granted, he doesn't come with any weapons that he can hold, like that he can handhold, but even so, it would be nice,
Yeah,
especially since the later Gamer Edition figures have posts that allow the bots to handhold the weapons.
it's funny you should mention the lack of wrist swivels because I think on this toy they're actually showing that it does have wrist swivel.
It's not that Barricade doesn't have wrist swivels. It's that they're very restricted.
Ah, okay.
Also, Barricade's foot design is not great because they're pretty easy to collapse, so he has trouble standing. To this figure's credit, it does look like the feet have been modified so that he can actually stand properly.
I mean, my biggest problem with this toy is it seems like one of those figures where the whole vehicle mode just hangs off his back, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can see it in his legs.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's just I don't know. It, it doesn't appeal to me. Um, and I suspect this may end up being a shelf warmer.
Well, I mean, in a sense, that'll be good for those who want it because then it'll be easy to troop build.
That is true. That is true.
Not that this is particularly high on my want list, but there we go.
Hmm. I suppose for all the people who want to recreate levels from the game, this is a win.
Yeah, I think this is specifically based on the trooper that expressed his concern for Megatron's plan and
Was
got
swiftly
promptly
executed.
got promptly rewarded for his concerns.
Hmm.
Again, I just think the base mold is okay, not astounding, not horrible either, just okay. And if they're doing Decepticon troopers, then I imagine that it'd be doing one for Autobots as well.
I feel like that might hinge on how well this toy sells.
Well, assuming it does sell, I suspect that the Autobot version will be using the Sideswipe mold that they've done recently.
Yep. Yep. You know what? You know what? Enemy from the Fall of Cybertron or Cybertron games I would really like to see as a toy.
What?
Do you remember? Do you remember the Leapers?
No.
They were these great big hulking mono-eyed Decepticons with giant claws in their arms, and we never see what they transform into. But as a kid, they always scared me to the point where I basically had to put down the game when they came up in the campaign, and then I had to, and then I only finished the game once I worked up the courage to face them again.
Are you saying these were from the Fall of Cybertron game?
Yes, they were from Fall of Cybertron.
Because the way you're describing them reminds me of the drone bots from the 2007 movie toy line Payload, Swindle, and Dreadwing.
Yeah, they sort of shared that kind of design, and they sort of had the sort of inhuman proportions that those figures had with the very long arms and the short legs. And in the game, they were quite intimidating because you couldn't really damage them unless you got behind them and shot them in the back. So you had to let them leap onto you, move out of the way, and then get behind them.
So, like, are there any other are there any characters from the High Moon Studios games that you think would make that you'd like to see toys of, basically?
Yes, actually. I would like to see. I would like to see their version of Jetfire see the light of day as a toy. Um,
I'd love to see Warpath.
oh yes, of course. I thought we were sticking. Warpath would be a very Warpath. Warpath would be very high on my list. The only reason I didn't mention it is because I didn't realize we were also including the movie games.
No, I'm talking about War for like the War for Cybertron Warpath.
Oh,
He
you're
was
talking
in that
about War
game.
for Cybertron Warpath, not
Yeah, so
Dark
many
Rumor.
namesakes.
Yes, he would be high. Yeah, he would also be high on my list. Jetfire, and also I'd like to see a toy of Air Raid from that game. They actually made an Air Raid in the Fall of Cybertron toy line, but it strangely was a repaint with a new head mold of Shockwave, which was interesting. But I'd like to see the original version of that design made into a toy.
Yeah, and we're also down the line. We're also getting Ironhide and Ratchet.
Interesting. I will withhold my judgment until I see those. Um, I wonder if they're going to be able to get across the very bulky design of those characters.
Well, they're being done at the Voyager price point, so let's hope.
Yes, yes.
Because right now the only Gamer Edition toy that has had generally positive reception across the board has been the Voyager Prime.
Yeah, yeah, that one actually did tempt me when I saw it.
I just hope Gamer Edition picks up, because there are some cool designs that I'd like to see be done in toy form that
Oh,
didn't get
absolutely.
that didn't get attention back in the old days of Generations, and that Fall of Cybertron toy line they did in like 2012 or something.
Yeah, who knows? We might even get a second attempt at Bruticus.
Yes, Fall of Cybertron Bruticus, one where Onslaught is an appropriate size that does Bruticus justice.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard that. Oh, what's his name? Breakaway. I heard that we're supposed to be getting a Breakaway toy in the Studio Series Gamer Edition at some point.
The Revenge of the Fallen one.
Yeah, the Revenge of the Fallen character.
I'll believe it when I see it.
True, true.
In the meantime, I think we've exhausted our talk on this figure, and we shall crack on to this little guy.
Okay. Immediately, this seems like the robot mode reminds me immensely of the 1.0 MP figure. Would you agree?
You mean with the bulky chest?
Yes, with the bulky chest and the sort of shorter limbs.
Yeah, I mean, it has the proportion. The robot mode has the proportions of MP21, but the alt mode is the penny racer style car, not unlike MP45.
Yeah, yeah. It is kind of interesting how they did that. This, do we know if this is going to have the same sort of parts forming transformation that the Cliff Jumper mold has?
Well, apparently, according to the live stream, there is no parts forming on this toy.
Okay, okay. That's good news. This is an interesting one. This is going to be another small deluxe. I'm assuming.
Yes, it is. It is, since it's a mini bot. It's going to be, I guess, well, not really core class plus, but definitely smaller than your typical deluxe.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be honest. Bumblebee, G1 Bumblebee isn't exactly my favorite design, but this does actually look neat. If they ever do a gold bug version, I might be more interested. Because generally I prefer the gold bug deco and the face mask.
Yeah, I mean, another way of looking at it is that this toy would be like, well, maybe not for everyone, but it would be the definitive Bumblebee. And then if you wanted Goldbug, you'd have the one that came with that Creatures Collide 4-pack.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the other thing about this toy is that I don't think they have the license for Volkswagen anymore.
Yeah, I've heard talk about that as well, that this is legally distinct. It is a Beetle-shaped car.
It's just frustrating that they have lost the license because I still would have liked them to have done like the full Volkswagen penny racer.
I mean, it's not too far off for being legally distinct.
Because my main issue with this toy, I mean, Kit isn't particularly fond of it based on his comments in the chat, but my main issues with this one are the square roof and well, some minor proportion issues like I guess the small headlights and
Yeah.
but I mean, to be fair, pictures of this have come other pictures of this have come out since then, and he does look better proportioned in those because in that one he looks like he has giant clown shoes,
Yeah.
giant feet.
The thing that sticks out to me about the alt mode is the bumper is really chunky. It's like he's got a steel girder on the front of his car mode.
Well, you know what? That I think has led to certain people speculating that this toy could be the way in which we finally get a toy of none other than Bumper himself. Because it looks like he has the appropriate bumper for it. It also makes me wonder because they've technically done Cliff Jumper in Studio Series, but it wouldn't surprise me if we got a Cliff Jumper out of this mold too.
Yeah, yeah.
Although don't expect him to be the Porsche or whatever his alt mode was.
German car manufacturers tend to be quite skittish about the Transformers brand.
Well, because of the whole War Machines thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But like as it stands, this one's okay. I mean, it does actually. Since you brought up the original Masterpiece Bumblebee, it does actually have a similar transformation trick in how part of the bonnet presumably tucks inside the chest, because they did bring up the fact that the Autobot symbol on the bonnet goes away in robot mode. So they attempted to replicate that with this toy.
Yeah, that was something I noticed. That was also a transformation trick on Earthrise Cliff Jumper, was it not?
The memory's a little fuzzy, but it could be.
I think it is, yeah. It also works to extend out the hood.
Yeah.
So it's not quite so stubby as it would be to make the feet proportioned properly.
And in terms of other uses for this mold, will they redo hubcap, or is the one and selects enough? Will we get glyph, tap out, sedan?
Maybe. Hasbro, I don't know. Hasbro doesn't tend to treat Bumblebee the same way they treat the Seeker mold, so we shall see what repaints they do, repaint/retools.
And like the Transformers 1 Deluxe Prime that they revealed in the last stream, this is one of the A-level figures, meaning that they are, well, they're doing everything to make sure that there's enough for sale for everyone.
Ah, so it's going to be double packed. I look forward to the return of beehives.
Yes, beehives were quite the thing in the early 2010s.
Yes, I remember well. I remember back going to Toys R Us, and the only Transformer you could find was Bumblebee. Bumblebee as far as you can see.
Oh, God. How bad is that when the supposed Kid Appeal character is still clogging shelves?
Clearly, he did not appeal to the kids.
Like I said, this one's generally decent. It looks like it poses well. It looks like it's well painted. Thankfully, they didn't cast the windows in translucent plastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like it seems like they wouldn't be able to do that, considering that the windows go round to the back of the car and are the same plastic as the rest of the body. So you'd have to have the much maligned paint matching to clear parts if they tried to do that.
But thankfully they didn't go for the baby blue color that they've been using for cartoon accuracy either.
Oh yeah,
because I really hate that color choice.
Yeah, it does. It does seem too bright. I think blacked out windscreens are the way to go generally. If you're not going to have a vehicle mode interior.
Well, they do it, but they paint them blue because like the animation models have like the windows basically be like a reflection of the sky, but you don't really get that vibe on a toy, and it just looks really, really ugly.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from.
But anyway, moving on from Bumblebee, and we get to another of the Seekers, Skywarp.
It's nice that they're doing it, but I have one of this mold, and that's enough for me. I know people have been talking about how this figure is more so gray and purple rather than the normal black and purple for Skywarp, which is apparently accurate to the concept art. But this isn't really interesting me so much, and I don't think the such a light shade of gray really translates well to a toy, in my opinion.
Yeah, several Skywarp figures have been going down this road because I think the Thrilling 30 Deluxe Skywarp had a bit more grey on it than I'd like, but this goes even further than that.
Yeah, yeah. It almost seems like a palette swap of the Starscream version. Not a palette swap, but like if you took all the purple on that toy and made it if you took all the red on that toy and made it purple, it would be almost close. It would be close to this toy's deco.
And apparently this one has Blitzwing's head.
Yeah, I do find it interesting that they are alternating between the Blitzwing style head and the Starscream style head on this toy, on this mold rather.
Yeah, yes, because Thrust had, excuse me, Blust had, Thrust
Blust.
had, Thrust had Blitzwing's head too.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I actually prefer the Blitzwing head sculpt over the Starscream style head sculpt. It just something about the Starscream head sculpt. It looks really chubby to me. Have you noticed that? The Starscream head for the Seekers?
Not really.
I mean, I don't own either of the toys, but it's just from pictures I have seen of that head sculpt. It always looks like it's got a sort of chubby human face cast in metal. That's what I always see when I look at it.
I do like the amber cockpit, like as an accent color. I guess I just wish there was more of well, forget more. I just wish there was a abundance of black. Period.
Yeah, yeah. It seems the only black on the toy is the black that's mandated by the materials on the accessories and on the joints. The closest we get otherwise is the gunmetal.
That is true. There is a bit of that you can see in the robot mode. What do you think of it as a mold?
It's not bad. It's an alright Voyager mold for current day Chug. I kind of wish that the Tetrajet mode looked more cohesive. To me, it just always seems like you've just got a mass of robot mode parts hanging out from underneath the jet mode, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like it's supposedly some sort of weapon, but you can tell that it was just an excuse to cram the arms underneath.
Yeah, yeah. It just, I mean, it's justifiable from a, it's a Cybertronian jet. It's not like it ever has to land because they can just transform into robot mode when they land. But it's not, in my opinion, the most attractive jet mode.
No, I guess it isn't really. Um,
I'll be honest, I'm still very frustrated with this mold's predecessor, the Voyager class Blitzwing from the Bumblebee movie.
yeah, I think you had some distaste towards that figure because of the jet mode.
Yes, my distaste towards that toy's alt mode is well documented. I was very frustrated with the fact that they apparently could not get the license to make the proper jet mode um, that he turns into in the movie, which is an F4 Phantom. Instead, they sort of have a generic jet that he transforms into, and the way that it transforms, it's not a very good jet mode, period, in my opinion. Which was very disappointing because the jet mode was one of the things I was looking forward the most to about that toy.
Do you actually have Blitzwing?
No, I never got it because I just didn't want it.
He's scarce as hell.
Is he?
Yes.
Why would anyone want it?
Sorry, what?
I was just saying, why would anyone want it?
Well, presumably because he's a kick-ass character from the film.
Yeah, fair enough. Not, I know the vast majority of Transformers fans are not aircraft nerds like me. That is funny though, because I do remember seeing that toy multiple times in stores, and passing it up.
What, like in person?
Yeah.
You lucky sod. But as for Skywarp, I have Thrust, and I don't immediately have any desire to get any other copies of the mold. And it kind of sucks because I'm generally a Skywarp fan. I like it. Of the three original Seekers, I typically like his color scheme the best. But they kind of diverged a bit too far with this one.
Yeah, it doesn't really have the appeal of the original color scheme, does it?
No, not enough purple, not a speck of black except for maybe the head.
Yeah, but that's just standard Seeker fare at that point.
And I think this is the last one, isn't it?
I mean, unless they want to do the other cone heads as Bumblebee movie Seekers, then yeah, pretty much. But of course, they didn't appear in the movie, and I don't think they had any concept art. So yeah, this would be the last one. Unless they want to do Genericons, maybe a 3-pack of Rainmakers.
In which case, we shall move on to... Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Controversy.
All right. I'm interested to hear your thoughts first, Rune.
Well, the thing is, we all know what this is going to boil down to. The main source of controversy is the fact that this is a retool of a mold that was previously sold as a Voyager. And they have retooled a fair bit from like the chest, the shoulders, the back. He comes with new weapons. He comes with fists that open. They managed to work in a wrist like blaster in reference to his opening scene in the film. Like, without context of the fact that he is a essentially now a Voyager Plus release, it's okay, it's decent like as a toy, but with context, knowing what he is or what he started life as, it's left a bit of taste in people's mouths, to put it lightly.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. I do understand that this toy does have a lot of new tooling, but in my opinion, I do not think that that new tooling justifies the extra, what, £10? How much more is a Voyager than a leader these days? Or how much more is a leader than a
Isn't it
Voyager
like
these days?
20? And over here, it's like 20 quid or something.
Yeah. So almost a whole deluxe's worth of price, effectively.
Yeah, because it's especially sore because keep in mind, the leader Thundertron that we're supposedly getting not only doesn't come with just one, but 2 additional figures. He comes with a deluxe and a cassette figure.
Yeah. And I really don't think the accessories that they include with this figure justify the price tag at all. From an actual cost perspective, they're all single piece accessories. They probably wouldn't be they're probably not that difficult to manufacture at all. Maybe the painting on the sword makes the price a bit more, increases the price slightly more. But it seems like they're just desperately trying to justify having you pay, what, £50 for this these days?
Pretty much.
and it feels like a slap in the face. Personally, it feels like a slap in the face. It feels like they know they can milk the fandom for whatever, and we'll just pay, and we'll just pay. You
Do you
know,
think do you think this would be like at least, well, certainly better value if still sold at the Voyager price point?
I think it. I think it. I think. I have the Siege Springer. I'll be totally honest. It's not exactly my favorite figure. I don't actually like it that much. I think the torso transformation is kind of frustrating, and it's not very fun to fiddle around with. I actually much prefer the Thrilling 30 Springer over that toy. But I know that figure does have its fans.
The main problem I have with the Voyager is that, for one, the way that the shins tab into place, it's essentially easier to unpeg the shins than it is to actually bend the knee. It's one of those joints that's easier to move than the joint that's actually supposed to move.
I will say, one significant improvement that the new leader figure has over the Voyager class is the way that the sword transforms into the rotor blades. Because on the original toy, on the original Voyager figure, it comes with basically a bracket and then two swords that attach to the bracket. But the bracket doesn't really have anything it can do in the other two modes. Whereas this toy, the sword transforms directly into the rotor blades. That I can appreciate, but I do not think that it justifies a leader class price point whatsoever.
And that's pretty much what a lot of people's problems boil down to. The fact that it is sold at a price point that, well, we just don't think it deserves it. It's kind of bollocks already that they claim that Triple G just can't be done at the Voyager price point, because they've done them before in Titan's Return, and even in Siege, of course, you had Springer himself, and on top of that, there's Eight Face and Snapdragon.
Exactly. It just
Granted, Eight Face is not that great a toy himself, but still,
Snapdragon's pretty good. I like
yeah,
Snapdragon.
Snapdragon's fine.
I should get out my Snapdragon actually and fiddle with him, but later. But yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm not sure who is really. I'm assuming this is a corporate decision to sell triple changes. To say that triple changes have to be leader classes, but it just doesn't. It doesn't seem right, and it isn't right, really. It seems like something that Hasbro is just doing because they know they can get away with it.
Well, you know what? If I do pick up this figure, it'll most definitely be on clearance, and that might not be so hard considering that the leader class figures don't sell particularly great anyways.
Yeah. Something I've noticed is like Transformers figures don't really sell that great in general, at least in my experience. Like, I've noticed a lot of old stock whenever I go to, places that sell Transformers, which these days are quite rare, actually. I'm not sure if that's been your experience, Rune.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's online where they're getting the most sales.
Maybe.
I mean, I heard that poor toy sales is why there is a rumor going around that the Earthspark cartoon might be cancelled after only 2 seasons.
Yeah, I have heard about that as well.
Yeah, Earthspark in particular has sold terribly.
Yeah, which doesn't particularly surprise me looking at the toys. Like, it just seems like the toy line for that series just seemed incredibly half-assed, and it just feels like there wasn't much communication between the toy people and the show people, which is something I preach a lot of the time. Is that if you want to do a brand like Transformers, which is at the end of the day a toy brand, you need to have communication between the show people and the toy people, so the show people make designs that the toy people are actually able to properly translate into toys.
Yeah, you brought that point up in episode 2 of the main podcast, how your biggest problem with Transformers these days is that the designs are done by, well, artists as opposed to toy designers.
Yeah, yeah. That is a big part of my problem.
And another problem is, of course, things like this.
Yeah.
I dread to think how they'll do Broadside.
Oh. Yeah.
Broadside in general has had really bad luck when it comes to toys.
Hey, there's always my USS Flag crossover idea.
Yes, but I mean, if we're wanting a proper triple changing Springer, I don't know what direction they're going to go down. The Titan's Return version, only 2 of his modes are generally decent. The jet mode is complete trash.
Yep.
And from a toy line that I think is otherwise generally really cool, that just sucks.
I don't know what. I really don't know what happened with Titan's Return Broadside, because his alt mode is just him basically lying on his back with his legs in the air.
Well, part of the problem was that some genius decided to retool him from Alpha Trion.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Good lord.
And the reason, apparently, the only reason or commonality those two have is that one turns into a spaceship, the other is an aircraft carrier, but they're similar in structure. So
Yeah,
they basically tried to turn a line into a jet.
And it's strange because it seems like the jet. It seems like they specifically planned to do that, because the tooling on Alpha Trion looks specifically designed to be an aircraft carrier.
Justice for Broadside.
That's what we need. That is what we need. Justice for Broadside.
And justice for fans of the Triple Changers who shouldn't have to pay leader class prices for Voyager class molds.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, I will say that without that context, the toy is fine. Well, for me, I think it's fine anyway. And at the very least, I hope that the retooling or whatever they've done fixes the problem with the ankles that mold had. Because, like, I don't know if you've seen Kit's review of Siege Springer, but he essentially had to stuff, I think it's firebolts, effects parts, inside Springer's legs so that he could actually stand.
You know, I don't think I have seen that review. That's shocking. My copy doesn't seem to have that issue, but my copy I don't really have out on display because, like I said, I have T30 out instead.
Well, I mean, it doesn't particularly help that the ankle joint on that mold is positioned too far forward.
Yeah, which this toy seems to carry over as well.
I mean, when they showcased it seemed to stand up okay, but I don't know whether there was some trickery involved in that we just couldn't see.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that if the toy has any issues, they're going to try and have the best possible representation for the show. You know, so if there are loose joints, they're gonna tighten them up with a bit of floor polish or whatever you use to tighten joints.
So with that, I think we shall press on to the last reveal, Comic Edition Straxus.
Okay, this was actually this one is interesting for me because I wasn't expecting to want this as much as I actually do. This looks pretty cool. I'll admit. I like it. Is it $60? It's £60 cool? But it does look cool.
Yeah. To anyone watching, if you've seen pictures of Straxus in his alt mode in the Marvel Comics, it should be no surprise that this figure is a partial of Kingdom Galvatron.
What I'm somewhat impressed by on this toy is how they were able to get how they were able to get Straxus's torso to be very much to be basically completely unique from Galvatron's.
Yeah, they've retooled a lot on this figure. They've retooled the chest. They've retooled the well, the wheels. Although I think they're just like wings now, or basically something he uses for a levitation. Basically, they've retooled those parts too.
Yeah, I think in the comic they were like little they were little struts that had wheels on the end that he rolls around on. I
Yeah,
might be wrong about that.
Yeah, they've changed that. They've changed the gun barrel, of course. Is Straxus's pickaxe weapon connects to the top, and the blades form the winglets, which are apparently in the Marvel comic. And you can definitely tell that this is a Marvel comic inspired figure, since it has the cell shading on the gun barrel on part of the cannon itself.
And on the torso, they have that dot. They have that dot shading.
Yeah, I get why some people might find that a bit bland, but for me, it looks okay.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't hate it. Cell shading is it's very much a hit or miss thing when it comes to physical toys. Generally, I'm more in the camp of, just paint the figure normally and let the light naturally shade it. Unless you want to do like proper airbrush shading to give a scale effect, but at that point you're getting into very expensive territory.
To this figure's credit, since it is a darker color, the black streaks don't really stand out that much. So if you find that sort of cell shading ugly, well, it isn't as noticeable on this toy, I don't think.
No, which is I suppose a bonus.
And the box art is supposedly based off a Marvel comic cover. I'm not sure which number it is, but there was a storyline in which Straxus and Blaster went up against each other.
Yes, I think Straxus was also the one who melted down what's the little circle guy who was friends with Blaster?
Scrounge?
Scrounge, that's it. Yes, I think I could be mistaken, but I think Straxus is most well known for being the guy who killed Scrounge. That's at least where I know him from.
Do you, by any chance, have the Generations Deluxe class Dark Mount? Because he's got his name back now, but at the time they did that Deluxe, he was called a Dark Mount in reference to his fortress. Have you ever had experience with that one?
God, I wish. That toy, in my opinion, is very cool, but no, I do not own one.
Yeah, it's a really cool mold. It has a really clever transformation in that the turret actually becomes the legs. And yet the turret can still turn.
I assume it uses the not the hip rotation, the waist rotation as a turret, right?
Yeah, pretty much. The only other toy I can think of that has a turret into legs transformation is the Marvel crossovers Hulk tank figure.
Yeah, and also the gender bent Tarn figure that some third party company put out whose name escapes me right now.
I'm not third party, so I wouldn't be overly familiar with that. But I think like I recognize that someone has done a Tarn with more feminine proportions.
Yeah, and on that figure, the legs become the turret, and the waist swivel is the turret rotation.
But yeah, I liked that mold. I like the Generations Dark Matte mold, and I quite like this one, though. This is yet another figure probably for the clearance pile for me.
Probably, especially for 60.
I don't think this will, like, I don't see this popping up in like prominent toy shops. Like maybe it'll show up in Forbidden Planet.
I'm assuming that's like the main retail place it's going to show up in. I doubt places like Smith's are going to stock this.
Yes, because obviously, I mean, I don't know if even if Shockwave and Grimlock are out at this point. Yeah, I don't see this guy showing about the likes of the Entertainer, Smiths. At least not right away. They could surprise us, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
Might show up at TF Nation. Probably not this year because it'll be too late, but at a future TF Nation, maybe. And on the side of the box, we got a quote-unquote teaser that there'll be a fourth figure who has a yellow hand. Not exactly much to go off of right now.
Could it be Scrounge?
Oh, God. Like, I just thought, like, could this be how that, like, if it's Scrounge, then that means, could it be Scrounge packed with Blaster, and that's how we get an opaque rewind?
Oh boy, I didn't think of that.
But the problem the problem with that is that in trying to emulate the Marvel comic art style, a lot of the parts that are black on like certain versions of characters that are blue, like with you can see this with Grimlock. And considering that Rewind is black, well, if they went that route, then basically he'd just be a darker eject.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Maybe they'll do a shading thing, and they'll have it so that the chest window on Blaster just so happens to be shaded, so it's very dark, so they can use black plastic, and then Rewind can be made out of black plastic, as God intended.
Because so far, the comic edition figures that we've gotten have all been figures that were done at the leader price point. And I can't really think of any leader class figures in the last few years where the characters were made prominent by the Marvel Comics, which leads me to believe that the last one will be a Voyager packed in with like a Deluxe or some other figure.
Maybe they'll do Scrounge from the Cosmos mold.
Haven't they done that already?
They did that from the Thrilling 30 Cosmos.
Yes.
There was a Legend scale. There was a pack-in with Combiner Wars Computron.
Yes.
But this Scrounge, I assume, would be a retool of Velocitron Cosmos. Which I don't think would work as well because Velocitron Cosmos is not nearly as flat as T30 Cosmos.
Yes. Well, I guess time will tell if they go down that route. Because even Jahaxus, another character that was made prominent in the Marvel Comics, he was a Voyager, and I don't know who they pack in with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, Jaxus. Well, I was going to say the thing is, Jaxus has already had a release, but of course, it's not Megatron, but of course, Grimlock and Optimus Prime have already been released. So maybe they'll do like a special card. I assume it'll be like a cell shaded version of Jaxus. I mean, who would they pack in with Jaxus then?
Other than one of his G2 Decepticon followers, like because you know that they done his troops via the Skullgrin mold.
Yeah. I mean, considering that Jaxus was from the Generation 2 comic, maybe they could do Jaxus packed in with Deluxe Sideswipe in his Generation 2 color scheme.
His actual Generation 2 color scheme and not the unreleased one.
Yeah, his black and the black and red color scheme.
Because the only clue that we have as to who the fourth Rio might be, aside from the hand, is a little fin. And we don't exactly have much. Again, we don't. That's not exactly much to go off of. So we're just throwing things up the wall here.
Yeah.
But like I said, Straxus looks cool. Probably not £60 worth of cool, but maybe I'll get him at an affordable price down the line.
Maybe.
And presumably they'll reveal the fourth one at the next live stream. Whenever that will be, I don't know. And with that, that brings pretty much these reveals to a close. They did discuss other things like Beyblade, but I'm not particularly into that.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't seem to be anything particularly exciting from there as well. It wasn't like a proper crossover or anything. It just appeared to be Beyblade with Transformers branding, which is, you know, whatever.
And I will give this live stream credit where it's due. Outside of Steeljaw, nothing was really leaked.
Yeah,
So
they managed to keep wraps on that pretty well.
enjoy it while you can, because I'm not sure the next one will be so lucky. And with that, that brings this video to a close. In the meantime, thanks very much for joining me for this one, Char.
Oh, it's been a pleasure as usual, Brownstone. Hopefully next time we can actually have more than 2 people on an extracurricular episode.
The only time that's happened is episode 4. And to this day, ID has not been on a single one of these.
One day we'll get him.
Well, you know what? One thing I will say, that one thing that I might start doing with these extracurriculars is like a sub-series within them called Toy Talk, where we discuss a specific figure in it's a bit more informally than a review. It'll be similar to the retrospective we did on Transformers Classics, except a single toy. And obviously I'll pick toys that give us a fair bit to talk about.
Yeah.
Like one figure I have in mind is Power Core Combiners Smolder with Chopster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another one I'm contemplating is Legends Blitzwing.
Do you mean Legends Blitzwing as
The
in
Japanese release of Titan's Return Blitzwing.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
But for now, this has been Runestone and Char saying take care till all are one.